welcome all to election night in America, in Tennessee at least, for the special election of the subsidiaries here. We can see these counties. This is expected to be a lot closer than it might have been otherwise. As we can see here on the House map, this previously was a 21-point district for the Republicans. The question is, how much closer will it get? And that we'll be watching all night for. And so it's going to be a very fun one. It's a more of a one-off. And so what we're looking at here is that the elections could probably going to be a lot closer. First off, from candidate choice, right? We have strong candidates here. The interesting thing is that typically there's a competitive primary, and sometimes that means that there can be some negatives for the party in power. However, at the same time, that could also then mean, okay, yeah, there might have been a competitive primary at some point in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's over by any means. Let me just pull up the 2025 elections, and really, all right, fine. Signal louder than I thought. There we go. Boom, boom. Boom, there we go. Okay, so if we look here, there we go, and look at our governorships, you can see here for Mikey Sherrill, who, of course, as a reminder, won by 14.36%. That is the final margin there. 14.36%. And if you look down at the primary, at the overall results, it was pretty close. She only won by 14 points. So if you then see, if you can find the primary here for the Tennessee 07, then we can find the, here, I'm going to use this a bit. Don't need that anymore. If you look at the Democrat result, oh, wrong one. It was pretty close, 27.89 to 24.88. So extremely close race there. In the end, Afton Bain obviously did end up winning. Interestingly enough, she only won one county. Let me see if I can find the website that I was using that actually was interactive there. But it was pretty close, and what she did was she was able to pull together enough second-place finishes across a lot of the more populous counties across the district, and then from there was able to pull together a win in the overall election. Where is the... Here's the polls there. So we are now down to 10 minutes before the polls close, 7:50 p.m. on the East Coast. And, all right, let's see if we can find... There's Ballotpedia. There's New York Times. There we go. Here, this is what I liked to use there. And so you can see she did win. She only won Williamson County, which is one of the counties that she really needs to be focusing on. The main two that we're going to be looking at tonight are Montgomery County and Williamson County. This is a county map, and this would basically be a dead even race. Like, I mean, within dozens of votes. You can see here, this isn't 100% the district, right? This is a county map, not of the actual district itself. It's not all of Davidson, otherwise she would win, and also it'd be too much population. But anyway, the chunk of Davidson that's there, at least you can see only a chunk of it's there, only about half of it, but the chunk that's in there is going to be safe blue by the end of the night. That is completely set in stone. Williamson, we have some interesting setup about Williamson here. If we look at Vote Hub and look at the overall, I probably have it here for, yep, there it is. Look at the early turnout by precinct. You can see that some of these are And here, these, I did go over this in my video where it was mostly about, I gotta change that something real quick, but, um, where we did the final prediction. And so I bet you'll probably could watch it before there's any real results coming in. It's gonna probably take a little while, but this is a reddish precinct. Some of these are a little bit blue. They're exurban suburban precincts. We're at a quarter of the 2024 final for early vote, so that's actually good for Bain. But it still is gonna end up being a. There we go. That's better. End video. There we go. Okay. All right, that's better. So now we're now focusing. Do you think all the publicity is race? Probably Republicans, because when you're putting out a turnout game, it's all about turnout for this one, really, because it's so Republican. It's really going to end up helping Republicans. But Bain's campaign strategy has really been pulling in Republicans who every single Democrat basically that wasn't going to turn out. Plus, then potentially getting those swing voters who might have stayed out in 2024. We obviously saw that with the precinct with the college. We heard that the turnout was actually higher than 2024's general election, period. So that obviously the youth votes potentially coming back for the Democrats. I think that her youth vote percentage is going to be probably Biden 2020 numbers, if not better. But again, mostly because Republicans aren't going to be showing out, especially young Republican voters. Young Democratic voters probably generally won't, because young voters don't show out, especially in these ones. And I'm talking more college age. But the idea is to get every single voter in Davidson County, Montgomery County, and Williamson County out. Every single one of those. And then get as little turnout as possible in all these other ones. So here you're going to need to get a lot of votes in central Davidson. That's going to be Memphis. The suburbs in Williamson County here, this is where she's from. And so that's actually the one county she was able to win, again, in the primary. That should help her a bit. And then up here in Montgomery County, she got second place by 3 points. And as you can see here, she only got second or first in these 3 counties, but she did well enough everywhere else to actually be able to end up pulling out a win district-wide. So that's just an interesting fact there, is that she only got in first or second in the 3 largest counties in the entire district, which kind of shows what you need to do in order to win in this district in the first place. But that's also just where the Democrats are, and there's not really any Democrats over here. The amount of Democrats over here are easily outnumbered by half of the people that are in this part of the district in Davidson. So we got quite a lot of people here, so don't be shy. Feel free to ask questions. It's going to be very open stream tonight because there's only one race to be watching right now. So feel free to ask me questions. I should be able to easily get to them. And so if you have any opinions as well, just make sure to be very respectful of others and such. And so the results should start coming in not too long from now. If we look at in the special primaries, about 8:05, and it was completed in both contests at 10:28. So we might be done by 10:30 tonight. I think it'll be a little bit longer, but we will absolutely know who the winner is by midnight. That is certain. So this will not be a very long race, right? By midnight, about a month ago, which is insane to think that we are now 1 month past the 2025 generals. But a month ago, all of the results were in by midnight. We knew New Jersey, Virginia, Prop 50, NYC mayor. All of that was done by midnight. So this is going to be probably about as quick as it was then. So again, 21.5-point district being this close is itself ridiculous. Is itself insane. We're going to be looking at how close Bain can get this down, or how far out potentially the Republicans could hold on to it. And we'll see if Epps can end up outperforming again and doing well. I mean, he he had Trump's endorsement. So, he was able to sweep everything. He won, every single count except these random two in here, and he lost them by quite a bit too. That's just kind of interesting. But it's going to be all down to these three. If both of these come in blue, if even slightly, I'd find it hard for Bane to lose. Just because if she's winning both of these, that's enough votes. But it is possible that Republican turnout could be higher than expected, and these areas could actually outweigh the extra votes there. Again, this is just a difference of up to 4 points between tilt red and tilt blue. So, but if you end up something like this at the end of the night, then Bane's going to be winning by at least one, which would be very interesting. But again, this is basically a broken even map. So, and also note that when the first results are coming in, it is going to be early vote. It is almost certainly going to be early vote. And roughly half of it will be early vote, maybe around 45%. So if Bane is not winning the early vote, then we may be able to call this race pretty early for Epps. If she is winning by more than 8, then you're going to want to keep your eyes peeled because this will be very interesting and could go until 10. So it is entirely going to come down to the how quickly things go. We are going to be looking using AP and Civic API. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new here. We do stuff like this all the time, and if you're a general politics person, we don't just do America, we do Australia and Canada as well. Coming out with a video for Australia for the South Australian regional elections are happening in March 2026 soon. That's actually going to be coming out 2 days from now, December 4th. I post bi-daily. I have for a little while now. And that probably will stay the same until the midterms really kick in because we are America source organization. So, we do specialize in that, but we absolutely focus on Canada and Australia as well. So the ideal, again, is going to be to break this if you're Bane. Now, again, I'm going to be focusing on this kind of how can Bane win because she's the underdog, right? That's generally how you want to focus on things. How can the unexpected potentially happen? And now it's actually not as unexpected. Interestingly, though, on Kalshi, if we go to Kalshi's markets, currently they are very non-favorable to her, interestingly enough. They're very, I'm told after what? Midterms? Oh, well. There we go. Look at that. Which party will win TN07? 90 to 11 right now. So, obviously they are not as, favorable towards this right now, but, we're looking at, potentially very strong numbers there. So, I mean, again, obviously these markets... All right, well, actually, the polls have just closed. So, currently, though, it is too early to call in the district. We don't have any numbers yet, but the polls have just closed, which means that we could start getting early vote numbers within the next few minutes. So, that's going to be already looking at this race, and it's just going to be going from here. So... this is the only race tonight. We are going to look a little bit at some other races, though. There is also a race in Georgia, as well as one in Florida, Idaho, and New Jersey. Just a few council races and other small elections. This is the big one, though, that we're going to be focusing on, and it is too early to call. So, with all that in mind, it is now 8 p.m. on the East Coast. And we now have the first poll closing, and the only one that we really focus on, again. But if anyone wants to see any of the other results there and any of the other ones, feel free to let me know. I can absolutely switch over on good old Civic API. Have some hopeful plans there. But looking at next is going to be, of course, where these counties come from. And I'll just show county, that right there. Actually get this in here. Getting some stuff on my end. There we go. Okay. And now what we're going to be waiting for is the first ballots. These are going to be the first actual votes coming in. I think Tennessee is one of the states that they can count early votes ahead of time, which means that as soon as these votes start dropping, I mean, they already have the numbers, they just have to officially report them. So this could happen pretty quickly. And just like that, 93 to 6. So some people dumped in some numbers for EPs. People are putting in all their money right now. We're literally watching that go live. And so 93 to 7 right there, 93-10. So apparently, people are pretty bullish on EPs. Looks like it's going to end up being short of to some extent there. But the question is again, how much? How much? How close will it end up being? So we're going to be watching nothing yet. I'm going to, up there we go. There we have uncounted votes estimates. That's just a bubble. It doesn't actually say exactly how many they expect, but all right. Those look pretty good for Bane, honestly. Dixon looks a little bit large, but these are the right kind of bubble size. You're gonna need most of it out of Davidson. Barely break in Montgomery, barely break in Williamson. She could do it, based on those uncounted votes estimates there. But still, it's not gonna be easy. Obviously, no one really said it was going to be at any point here. It was always an uphill climb. But again, this is what we're gonna be looking for. And based on that, oh, there we go. Stewart County apparently has some votes in. Most likely, this is entirely straight from. But yeah, Matt Van Epps is apparently currently in the lead there. How do you unselect? Okay, that's not very intuitive, but I can deal with that. Coming out to an early lead. There we go. There's Wayne County starting to drop. So already we are getting a few votes in. 71 to 24 with not that much reporting. AP does not have any of it yet. They're usually very on top of it. I'm surprised. But we're going to be looking at is again these three counties. How much can they outweigh? Because that's going to be the number one concern for the Bane campaign is how much are these going to set EPs ahead that she's then going to have to offset with these three. And so we've seen things like this before. That's typically how things go. You have these urban regions typically, and in this time the suburban and exurban regions as well. 91 to 10. So it's kind of balancing again at 90 to 10, which is where it's been for a while. It's kind of going all over the place, but again, it's going to be don't really need that anymore. That's not very but like New Jersey for example, it ended up being expanded from that, but it was the rurals versus if you look at the precinct map, it looks very different, right? Oh, speaking of the precinct map, we have that. You can see it's the rurals here versus Camden, some of these outer cities as well, and Jersey City, right? And who won? Cheryl. If you look at if you look at Virginia, right? It's the outer rurals, Montgomery, Roanoke, right? Virginia Beach area, and then Northern Virginia versus the rurals. And who won? Spanberger. So it's all versus the. It's all. There we go. We have. I have no idea what these colorations are on, but it's all right. There we go. There's all these votes in here for. All right, 63% counted already, 45, 55. So this isn't looking too bad. We don't have any numbers from any of the three that Bane needs to get numbers from, but She does have about 1,000 votes, so she made it there. Congratulations. And so, I mean, she got 8,500 from the primary, so she doesn't break that. That'd be very disappointing. And she should be getting over 31,000. If she doesn't, then she's not winning, period. But again, it's gonna be a bit here. Oh, wait, oh, for a second, it kind of flared up a little bit, but now it's coming back down. Okay, now it's actually at 8713. So this is going to be interesting to watch because people are, typically very accurate with how they spend their money. Well, they're more cautious. Now, again, that you've seen ridiculous things before, right? But again, oh wow, $1.2 million. This is actually a much higher profile race than I bet most people would have expected a little while ago. Okay, she actually didn't do that bad in Perry County, apparently. She 26 to 70. She actually narrowed up a little bit somehow, which means that it's average, yep, 69% versus 70. So yeah, that makes sense. But she's still down, not surprising by any means. And so what we're looking at here is how long will this hold on for? And so, what are we potentially going to be seeing? And so it's not impossible by any means. We've seen insane overperformances and things like this before. I mean, if anyone thinks that this is impossible, I recommend you to go watch the 2017 Senate race in Alabama. Right now, that is completely different, but it was Alabama, which was plus 15. This is plus 11, so it's a little bit closer. But there you had a strong candidate, a very, very, very flawed one on the Republican side. But then you had favorable turnout dynamics, which are actually more so today than they were back then. It was also in the South, where typically that's a little bit lagging in how it's changing. And you ended up with, if we go here, because we don't need to show off the 21.5 anymore, really. And if you look at the off cycle, 2017 Senate, Democrats had a Democrat Alabamians had a Democrat representing them in the Senate from 2017 until he lost re-election in 2020 by only 22, which is actually pretty impressive, only 20 and a half points. But again, that's extremely impressive. That was probably one of the biggest surprises of the 2010s in the Senate, alongside the fact that Brown got elected in Massachusetts by 5 in 2010. But again, it's when it comes to these off-cycle elections, it could be anything. There we go. Montgomery County first drops, and she is ahead by 3. She's ahead by 3 points in Montgomery County, 2.9 to be exact. And that brought her up a lot. She is down by 9%. And her odds just skyrocketed to 17%, just hovering around 16 now. So she's getting the numbers she needs. I'm going to stop actually referencing that. If anyone wants me to show that, then I can. But she's getting that. Those are the kind of numbers she needs. Benton County, not really much there. I wish that AP would actually be more. Do they not have Montgomery's numbers then? Weird. I'm gonna refresh it again. Yeah, they don't have them in. All right. They might be getting, I don't know, probably different sources or something. But that's by 2.9%, and that's quite a few votes, right? That's a 600 vote surplus. That's more than those. That's actually less than Stewart counties. So she's gonna have to keep working, but that's without Davidson. And now she's pulled within 9. So she is building off what she needs. If she's able to win Williamson by as much as Montgomery, and then add in Davidson, right? That could counter out Robertson, Dixon, Humphreys, Decatur, right? And potentially get some damage in here. In the meantime, there's Cheatham County, which is not on here. This is delightful non cross showing here, but here this has her down by a lot. This one not as much, but doesn't have Cheatham, and this one doesn't have Montgomery. Where on earth are these coming from? I wish I had something unified here, but it has not reported Montgomery yet. Some of these are probably all going to be the election day votes. These haven't reported yet. 51% here, 48% here, 55% here. Only 30, 27% in Stewart County, which means they almost certainly reported some of their election day already. Wayne, 45. So this is shaping up to be quite as competitive as it was expected to be. I mean, you're looking at 36,000 versus 31,000 right off the bat. That shows that something's going on there. Almost as many Democrats showed up for the primaries as Republicans. When, compared to, the House, obviously it wasn't even considered anywhere near close. If we look, wrong race. Congratulations, terrible mouse. You know, I mean, again, the scale is completely off, right? 36,000 versus 191,000. But still, that's 72,000 vote gap, and this is just 5,000. The percentage actually might not be that far off, so, the turnout gap might be a bit off. There we go. There's Montgomery. Okay, and now she's down by 13. And again, feel free to ask questions in the comments. This is a very open stream right here. Don't really have much to focus on here, so I happily will answer any questions in the live chat. And so we're Williamson and Davidson. The Sons and Montgomery are going to be the ones that, not Robertson though. Only Davidson and Williamson. Unfortunately, and not Dixon either. So there's a lot of Sin counties here. Robertson, Davidson, Williamson, Dixon. That's peculiar. Anyway, this chunk over here has most of the uncounted votes still. Montgomery is only half in. So again, we're not even looking at that generally high potential there, right? She could potentially pull away more. And just a quick recap, we're looking at this from how can Bain win because she's the underdog. That's typically how you would focus on these sorts of things. And real quick, I'll be right back on something. So, all right, sorry about that. There, when do I think the results come out? So, most likely, as you can see here, the vote count was completed in both contests by basically 10:30 for 2024. So, essentially, it's going to be almost certainly by 10:30. We will absolutely know by 11. But I'd say potentially as early as 10. This is probably not going to be a very long night. We know of a few other races here, though. I mean, Florida, Whitehaven City Commissioner runoff, already done. Ann Huffman won. That was uncontested. No votes in yet. Hasn't been updated in a little while, though. Hasn't updated since 6:45. Oof. All right. Well, that's annoying. 8:14. Georgia State House runoff. 2 Democrats. And that would mean that Muhammad Ali did win that dished that with 100% reporting. Idaho, you have a few mayor runoffs. New Jersey, Jersey City mayor runoff. That's going to be the main one there. And then, of course, Tennessee, where we now have every single county except for Robertson, Davidson, Williamson. So all the Sons are awaiting still, except for Dixon. They're already in. But Davidson, Robertson, Williamson, Montgomery is right where it needs to be. If she can hold up that margin, that's going to be really good. She's currently down 6. All right, she's down by 6,700 votes. All right, so but right where she needs to be. Because if she's getting, that's a relatively manageable final margin there. I'm just going to quickly check Kalshi. Yeah, she's up to a quarter chance. So she's gone up from 90 to a quarter. So things are potentially going her way. This is going to absolutely be close. It comes down to Davidson, right? How much is she able to get out of Nashville? How much did those she hates Nashville attacks work? That may end up completely changing the race at this point. It is that close. So it is completely it is going to be down to essentially the wire here, obviously. But I mean, we're just going to be waiting for more votes here. Um, and it's Montgomery County. That's a success story so far, right? If you have a 600 vote surplus, then you're going well. But the problem is that this is likely early vote, and that's going to be a bit more Democratic. So if you end up having an election day being more Republican, then Montgomery is going to be basically even, which means you may end up with this, and that means that we actually are going to be here a while. Somehow it's only been 17 minutes since the polls closed. I feel like I've already been here for an hour because I've been so invested already. But he's currently ahead by 16 with a quarter of the votes counted. So that's the AP estimate, obviously. And so we are still waiting on everything from Nashville. They're taking their sweet time. Probably going to give us a nice good drop in there to spice things up once he's ahead by a good bit or something to keep things interesting throughout the night. But in the meantime, I guess we can just sit and watch, and you can continue to ask questions. I'm surprised 30 people here. I think that's more than, I mean, I know I've grown a bit, but I think that's more than watched at any point for my 2024 election. That was a general election, and this is a special House election. So thank you all. Seriously, I mean that. Thank you. Montgomery County here. Being right where it needs to be, continuing to potentially see that increase. That's again very unlikely, considering that you'd need, that would be a lot of Republican cross support. So now that we're kind of in a bit of a slump right now, that we're sitting at 25% reporting, so I can pop out chat. Perfect. There we go. And then I can do this. Okay, there we go. Now I can see the chat, and now I also have this, so I can be watching the results at the same time on this screen. All right, there we go. So now we can look at the polls. What are we looking at as far as the polls? Well, we're going to be mostly looking at the one that was done by Emerson College to see if she really has any chance here, right? It's going to be down to cross support. Yeah, the fact that it's even like in any contention is very surprising. If you had told someone, a few years ago that, something like this could be happening, they'd be a bit surprised probably, but, considering that we're looking at, Trump's approval rating and, the turnout dynamics of the era now and stuff like that, it's not necessarily as surprising as you might think. As far as, if you had known that this was happening the day that Trump entered office, some people might know, oh, yeah, it might be a little interesting, but it's definitely still a story. And the end result is going to tell a huge story about 2026. That's exactly why it says the thumbnail. I mean, it's legitimately going to potentially be the story to tell for 2026. So, what is your party affiliation? Surprisingly, every single Republican is a Republican, but independents, let's see, here we go, already voted / absentee ballot, very likely, that doesn't really matter. What we're going to be looking at specifically is split ticket voting. Here's the interesting thing. 7 people who approve of Trump were expecting to vote for Bain. That's interesting. That is very interesting. And 7 people who disapproved of Trump were voting for Epps, so, okay. Well, I guess that completely balances itself out. But here, Republicans, 17. That's 6.3%. That's not really enough to make or break that entire race. So again, that's great and all. It's just not going to be enough to, shatter that if we're looking at more Republican votes ahead, right? If that's the story that we're going to be looking at tonight, it's probably not going to happen. Unfortunately for the Bain campaign, which is always very fun to say, the Bain campaign. But obviously not impossible. And we've seen ridiculous comebacks before. That's, obvious. But 6.3% of Republicans voting for you isn't necessarily going to be enough, right? Now, let's see if we can find some error here. Let's see if we can find CNN's election 2025 exit polls, and then look at, let's do New Jersey, because there were a lot more interesting ones there. And then go back to the 2025 governor's page. Yeah, that works. That's fine, because then we can go right here. Oh, come on. Go right here. New Jersey. And wrong thing. All right. Y'all pick a poll do you want to look at? We should do Emerson. Actually, no, I'm gonna do Emerson College because that's exactly who we're looking at here. Oops. I'm gonna do the executive decision. We're gonna do this because it's the same pollster. Oh, poop. It's not the actual. What is going on here? Why can't I find the? All right, fine. I'll find it real quick, but it's not being very cooperative here. Emerson College. Here we go. October 30th. Look at that. Oh yeah, they were the ones who found Mamdani with a 25-point lead. And they were also the ones that found Cheryl only up by 1. So full results. That opens up the spreadsheet. And now we go cross tabs. Here we go. Okay. All right, there we go. We're getting some progress. Go away. Ungroup. Thank you. Here we go. New Jersey governor. Scroll down to by party ID. Republicans 7% for Cheryl. What did Emerson College find? Because this is gonna be the interesting thing. Have they been underestimating Republican crossover? Because the thing in 2024 was that everyone was overestimating. They thought that the Republicans for Harris movement would materialize, and it ended up being the average about 2% cross support. So, party registration from file Republican. How likely are you if they were held today? 5.2%. 5.2% to 7%. So basically statistically insignificant of a difference. That's weird. Male Republicans actually voted more for Cheryl than female Republicans. Okay, well then. But the idea that, it's gonna be way out there isn't really looking like it's going to materialize either. Unfortunately, it's looking more consistent with that the polls might not be that inaccurate. But then again, they might have just gotten lucky. So it's because statistical quote unquote luck does just happen. It's polls. There's error. That's what the margin of error was. Now this was not within the margin of error whatsoever, right? Combined vote after push 5.1%. Okay. Because undecideds. They pushed the one undecided Republican, and they decided to vote Chettarelli if they had to vote. Okay, interesting. Well, anyway, statistically insignificant error there. And from that, you can say that this crossover support number, 6.3%, probably isn't going to be that far off. Now, as Bradington points out, it might be a bit more difficult to poll a House special election. And it's not necessarily that it's more difficult is that nobody really cared to. If we look at this race here, oh wow, they are on it. Oh my word, I swear sometimes the Wikipedia editors are like on something. I mean, they're already on it. Already 25% as of 8:15 and they have the map right. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. That is hurting my eyes. No one really did it. Three polls. Three polls. Two of them Democratic aligned. But the weird part is that they found a larger margin for EPS than the nonpartisan one did. So either that's a lot of momentum, or both of those margins of errors are kind of like showing that it's going to be somewhere in the middle, and we're going to be looking at a 5-point race tonight. But only three polls means that any like averages are gonna. Why on earth would you update this as the results are coming in? What is wrong with you? Okay, I don't understand people on Wikipedia sometimes. But and again, that's just with leaning. You push leans and you get no change. I think it was 1.5 points, right? So it was ridiculously close. But let's see if there's any. Nope, not a single update. So we may be sitting here for a little longer than expected. I mean, there's just nothing going on. But there's only three polls. I don't know why nobody else polled this, considering all the national attention it was getting. I mean, both of the presidential nominees for 2024 went to this district to campaign. Both of them. How often does that happen? It's a random special election. So, the fact that nobody polled this is kind of confusing me here. But, I mean, like, plus it puts so much weight on Emerson College. If they end up being wrong, everyone's going to be mad, but, well. I mean, they kind of botched the New Jersey one too. I feel like, I mean, that was a 1 point margin there, and she ended up winning by 15. So it's a bit, yeah, no college degree, voting blue by 1. That was the sign. That should have been the sign it was over. I don't know why I didn't call it on poll closing. Honestly, that's a sign it should have been over. Non college graduates should always vote red, and there was no shot that it would have. Voters of color, no degree, being 75-23 with 15% of the electorate's huge. 63-37, no degree for white voters, 31%. So anyway, but that's literally all exit polls for New Jersey. I don't think they have any exit polls, which is sad because that would be awesome. That would be really, really freaking cool. But no, they don't. They don't. So instead, we now just have anything. Honestly, it made. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it's gonna be difficult because honestly, I think it'd probably be easier more than anything because you wouldn't have to sample as many people to lower down the margin of error. It decreases logarithmically, roughly. Wow, roughly logarithmically. That is a tongue twister. With with the increased participants. So 600 likely voters, and it's 4. That's a lot smaller than, say, the. Oh, I can't. Okay. There we go. Boom. Boom. No. No. Federal, presidential. Boom. Um. No. No. Okay, I'm just trying to see if I can maybe find. Well, okay, whatever. I was gonna see if I could find polls for 2024 national popular vote, and those would have been like, in order to have a 4-point margin of error, they would have had to have been like size of 1,200. So because you're sampling a smaller population, it's actually going to be easier. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be cheaper, that's for sure. It's going to be cheaper. But it's going to be harder to phone bank, right? You can't just call random numbers and ask who you're going to vote for, Harris or Trump. You got to specifically get these people. But they managed to get that with statewide elections and stuff too. So they have their ways. But yeah, we are at a standstill with the votes. We have been for the past 15 minutes. Last votes coming in were like 8:15. So half of the time the polls have been closed. We have not seen we haven't seen any counting. So that's fine. Estimated 2%. Oh boy, that's not right. But anyway, we're still waiting on. Oh, there we go. Okay, hold up. Hold up. All right, we might have just gotten a vote drop from Davidson County. I mean, we did right here, and she pulled into the lead by 12. Okay, so hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. All right, we just gotta wait for AP to see how that changes for the percentage in Davidson and as a whole. But that just changed who was in the lead, so that is huge. All right, everyone. So she just pulled into the lead, and she's ahead by 8,000 votes. That was a shock that came out of nowhere. I was just talking about how we haven't had any votes in a while. She is winning Davidson County by 70%. That is beyond what she needs to win it by in order to win. So she's in this race. Let's see how Kalshi reacted. Okay, so actually it's been going back down. Now she's been going back up, but it's like 70-20. There's actually a better chance of her winning right now. So if anyone's on Kalshi, go ahead and go for Bane. I'd say she probably has about a 30% chance of winning. So it's worth it now. You can sell it later and it'll still be a profit. I'm not endorsing people to gamble though. And so, we have a considerable. I mean, that was huge, and she's now winning by 12. But you still have to wait. And now AP just got it, and so yeah, she's in the lead by 12.2% out of essentially nowhere. I am very surprised that came in like all at once. 50%. That's half of them. That's half of them. Okay, this is probably going to react very quickly. And so I expect that, it's her chances are probably going to go up a little bit. Now there's definitely people who have like number crunching machines, but that's absolutely the numbers that she needs in order to win. And so if she can get twice that margin, that's 14,000 votes. And she's currently ahead by 8,000. So that means that she was down by 6, right? So 50% left. And that's without Williamson. So she is still in this to win. So that's a bit of a surprise as far as that goes. You're still going to have to be watching for Montgomery, though. That may end up flipping, right? That may end up flipping. It probably will, honestly, considering that she's only ahead up by 3. That'd be good for Epps, obviously. He's gonna be watching to get as many votes as possible out of these rurals, because again, these are only gonna get redder. He's, even with the good turnout dynamics, he's probably gonna win Wayne with over 80% of the vote by the end of the night. So it's I swear it just went up. I swear it just went up by a little bit. Okay, but anyway, I think it might have actually just gone up a little bit. But again, that's not many votes left. And look at how many are in Nashville. So I am a little, and now her chances just went up to 25%. So she's got a quarter of a chance to win. I am still shocked that came in so quickly. Robertson. Okay, there we go. Now we're starting to get a little bit, slower. They're 41% in, down by 20. All right, that makes a bit more sense. I wish I could find like a That's the thing about these like not usually competitive elections. Like no one cares about them, so why would there be a random interactive map of the 2024 election? Because Jackson Dude doesn't have it, and that sucks. But yeah, this doesn't really tell me much of anything. I mean, I could go down and do some math here, right? This is gonna be fun. Um, let's take a look, shall we? That's 34%. 34. 34%, and that is, I already forgot the name of the county, Robertson. Robertson, 34, that was 47%. So that's actually not that much of a decrease, believe it or not, though. And if that is the early vote, then that's good news for EPS to potentially be able to see very reddening election night. We don't know how much of this is early vote, though, and how much of it is election night turnout. So that's going to be the final question. We are now just waiting on Williamson. They're taking their sweet time here, which is getting a little irritating, though. It's been, half an hour, and they still haven't, reported a single vote, but maybe they're doing something funky and they're trying to go in all at once. Who knows? I think that's happened in a few counties in Virginia, but I mean, there's like 107 of them, so whatever. But Benton, half in, 57. Humphreys, 50, 51, 56, 63, 41, 55, 66. So, okay, the odds are interestingly sitting around 18% chance of winning for Bain. I don't know why they're being honestly that bullish for Epps. I think it's probably closer to 65-35 right now, which honestly isn't changing much from the final prediction here. That was a 69% chance of victory, so she gained a little bit, but still, I think they're definitely a little bit heavy on Epps right now. So I'm kind of just curious about that, but I guess I'll just leave that open. But I'm not really gonna be paying attention to that much. I said that like 10 minutes ago, and then came back to it anyway. So there's a see what's going on the socials. It's gonna be fun. There's a few people that are getting actually crunching numbers now for apparently Bane's ahead a little bit of her goals, but some people crunch some numbers for that. And so it's gonna be. I think honestly, we're gonna be looking at for the rest of the night is gonna be a few of these starting to trickle in, and then Davidson's gonna be most of the way in, and then we're gonna see if Epps can then catch up and pass. So that's gonna be interesting to watch. And here's good news for Epps though. Turnout of 2024 in 2025 special elections, the lower the better. And so Virginia's 11th, 37%, Arizona's 7th, 37%, Florida's 1st, which was a pretty good story for the Democrats, even though they lost 41%. Florida's 6th, one of the best ones they had this cycle so far, 45. Tennessee 7th, 52%. That's probably not good for the Democrats here tonight. So that may be something that may harm it potentially. That is just a Democrat heavy dump in Davidson. There's a lot of potential still out there for things to go wrong for the Bain campaign. But that being said, a Democrat is leading in Tennessee 7th District. So, go ahead and take some pictures here. This is going to be fun. Why does it say 7% reporting? That is, we're at like, yeah, we're 42%. So again, that was a huge chunk of the most of the votes is just Davidson County. Still waiting on Williamson, but Democrat is leading in Tennessee 7th, which if you had told this, absolutely, if you had said, oh yeah, at some point during the night, a Democrat will be leading in Tennessee 7th Congressional District, probably would have looked at you like you were crazy. But whether she will be leading when all the votes are counted, that is a different question completely. So, Bain is outperforming Harris everywhere from 16 to 22 points in the early vote. So, Harris lost the district by 21. She's right where she needs to be. So that's the main Main focus point there. This is gonna be probably contested until the very end of the night. We're gonna be here until 10. I almost guarantee it. And so this is going to be pretty close to a nail biter. The interesting thing is though, this isn't even going to change who controls the House. Okay, this is essentially going to come down. It's just a buffer seat that the Republicans would love to have, but it doesn't flip the House. I did see a few posts saying that this would flip the House. It would not. In theory, depending on who the Democrats could get on their side, if you get like Thomas Massey and who else? Who else has been kind of on the fence? I doubt Nancy Mace would for this specific thing that I'm going to bring up, but she's been kind of against that. Potentially some other potential vulnerable Republicans like Kagan, Whitman, they're potentially going to lose their seats because of Virginia redistricting, which, if you're curious, make sure to go to electiontimene.ws. And right up the top, we have, of the news tab, we have the redistricting war status. Stay up to date on the redistricting wars. What's going on? Who's leading? Which is currently the Democrats, expected 1.23 gained seats, which is definitely a turn on things. But yeah, we're looking at potentially some very interesting things going on here. But where was I going with that? Right, they're potentially gonna lose their seats, so they might get on board to get rid of Johnson. Right, he's the current Speaker of the House. They might be willing to work against it because now they have Grijalva again, and so that they could potentially all team up together and take him out because that's one more Democratic seat. It would be so weird to see a blue right there. It's not the 2018 map anymore, right? It's intentionally split up, but it would be funny if that kind of ended up backfiring because if it was that there'd be no shot if like green left now in this map 35, and he won that in 2018, so it wouldn't have even been anywhere. It would have been 30 points, and that would have been, oh my goodness, such a good night or whatever, and Bane would have never run in the first place. So interesting how history ends up doing that sometimes. But it's gonna be Williamson, dude, get the memo. Yeah, I mean, a Republican speaker negotiation would be terrifying. They would probably. Here's the interesting thing: we got time tonight, right? We're just gonna be sitting back and doing this. Let's talk political dynamics. I don't normally get into this kind of stuff. I'm more of an election kind of person. But who would they end up picking? They get someone somewhat moderate that probably isn't going to lose their seat in 26. So that gets rid of Mackenzie, Brennan, Perry, you know, potentially Nunn, Miller, Meeks, anyone who's retiring, obviously. But who would they potentially pick for speaker? Because they're not going to go with someone as unlikable as Johnson. I don't even know. I don't know if there's any polls anywhere for. All of a sudden now it's 98-4. I have no idea why. I don't see a single vote that would make anyone think that, honestly. But okay, it's their money. But Huizinga, maybe Kian. I mean that's not necessarily a very very popular. He might end up losing in 2026, depending on what we saw in New Jersey. I mean, if the Democrats are able to get turnout back down here in this area again, they could absolutely end up flipping that district. But I mean, Lawler. Okay, that's actually a good one. Lawler, somewhat moderate from New York. Probably not going to lose in 26. I mean, he's a juggernaut, right? He narrowly won in 2022. Oh my goodness, it's going to be super competitive, and then wins in 24 by 6.3. Harris won his district, right? He's an overperformer compared to the presidential level. Harris won his district, and he won by 6.5. So Lawler wouldn't be a bad pick. Who would be Lauren Boebert. Nancy Mace retiring. Green's retiring. I don't know who else, but I mean that wouldn't be a bad pick. Would be Mike Lawler there. Have a few more votes coming in. Houston, his margin got puffed up a little bit there. He's up to 76% reporting. honestly, this entire race comes down to now, because there's like no votes left here. Like, we are down to maybe 2,500 in these entire counties left. It's going to be down to these 6: Montgomery, Robertson, Davidson, Cheatham, Williamson, Dixon. It's going to be down to those 6, because that's where basically all the remaining votes are. Trump's doing okay with the people that he needs to be doing okay with. But honestly, I think more of an issue is the fact that Republicans themselves in Congress are now relatively unpopular. So that's another issue they're going to have to be focusing on. Is their approval rating is in the garbage. It is going to basically be down to who Trump wants, though. She's now ahead by 4. We still are waiting any more vote drops from Montgomery, from Williamson, right? Yeah, I don't see where this 98-2 is coming from, but I'd be willing to place a few bucks on Bane right now, cause likely it'll come back once that second vote drop from Davidson comes in. But and then you could just sell if you don't think she's gonna win, just make a few bucks, right? But it's really gonna be down to honestly, considering that they said 88% to 13 or whatever, I probably would have like, yeah, they're way oversaturated for EPs right now. It's close to 2 to 1 right now. It's hovering right around 2 to 1 chance. Um, and that's narrowing. I think it's probably closer to 60-40 right now. So, um, I mean, it's getting considerably close. I mean, closer than you definitely want. For a Republican here. I mean, 20 points in Cheatham County. Why is that a lighter color than this one when it's redder? I'm so confused. Um, so you know what? Let's just forget Kalshi. They're just joking to themselves, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, this definitely is gonna have repercussions because if you look at how far this is already shifting. Oh, thank you from the UK. All right, I'm sorry. I don't do UK politics. Um, but you got, American, Australian, Canadian. I do lots of, former British colonies. So, oh, look at that. We got a few British people in there. All right. Um, reform sweep soon, potentially. Um, that's about as far as I know. Uh, but if you don't know anyone, I suggest Anglo Election Insights. He's great. I did a collab with him not that far back. If you have not already, make sure to give him a subscribe. He's a great guy. Um, and I don't think he's done many British things yet. He's mostly focused on Australia because he's Australian, obviously. But he does basically everything I do, plus Britain and New Zealand is essentially his thing. So I don't know. Now it's down to 2.8%. I have no idea where these extra votes came from. If you're interested in U.S. politics, make sure to give me a subscribe, all right? And then also make sure to go through, I have public subscriptions. They're listed at the bottom of my homepage, all over the political spectrum. I watch them all. It's basically part of my job, right? Get different point of views. Sometimes people give me ideas about like how things might go, theory, I guess, if you will. And plenty of them are great. Some of them not so much, but got to get some variety in there. Even broken clocks are right twice a day, so it's gonna be 50% in, still ahead by 70.4. Williamson still nothing. I'm getting annoyed with William. Oh, whoa, oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. Williamson County in. She is down by 10, and Epps has taken the lead. So now I'd say it's probably close to 2-1 chance. That's a big blow right there. If that's the early vote too, then she's gonna need everything she can get from Montgomery specifically. This is where she's from. So the fact that she's not getting that strong from Williamson is not what you should be seeing as Afton Ben. Now, if it isn't the early vote, if it's a mix, then she might be okay. They might just be throwing everything out and acting like it's all election day. I don't know what each precinct is doing. I have not gone down there and asked. But he is now leading again by 188 votes. 188, if I did my math correctly. I think I did. I did graduate 3rd grade math. But then again, it is 8:53, and whatever. They still don't have it in yet, but they still have this narrowing up, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on there, but he is ahead by 0.2%, 188 votes. And so there they have it, and now they have him ahead by that same 188, and now we're gonna be, this isn't looking as strong anymore. 6%. Where's that coming from, right? If she ends up a weird map, as far as I think, would be something like this, but at the same time you have this, and she could in theory win with this map, depending on if she does well on Davidson. She could basically end up losing her home county by up to 12, right? Likely is from 6 to 12. And then win Montgomery from 2 to 6. And if she does well enough in Davidson and well enough everywhere else, she could win. So it's not doom. It's just not a good sign because they're both suburban, exurban, roughly the same, like probably 85% white, right? They're similar demographically. They're different than Davidson. This part of Davidson, I mean, this is the outer part of Davidson. Most of central Nashville's, I think, like over here. I mean, central Nashville's perfectly split here. You have the outer areas of Nashville. It's a bit more white. That's the suburbs. But you have a lot of it's very it's a bit all over the place. And so, you're looking at potential concerning. All right, I'm just quickly checking up on some things. People are apparently loving up my posts here. Okay, so essentially, I have no idea who Calvion is. Davidson's roughly half in, which means that she has another 14,000 vote surplus here in the banks. In theory, this was the early vote, most likely, and the election day vote's gonna be more Republican. So she probably has about 13,000 more votes surplus, which means that she would be ahead by 12,500. Can he beat that? Here, she's ahead by 2. If the rest is even, she's going to be ahead by 1. So that's even. That means that nothing changes. 41%. That's going to be another 2,500, right? That's half in. That's another 1,500. That's 3K. Quarter in, that's another, that's 1,700. There's like another 100 or two. That's basically all in. They're done. Decatur, Perry are done. That 99% just means that there's a few mail-in votes. I mean, they're rural counties in the middle of nowhere. Republicans don't tend to vote rural. There's or mail-in. There's probably like 2 votes left. Um, and so 50% in, 80% in Houston. That's going to be a little bit more though. So they are going to add up, and then Dixon. Dixon is gonna hurt. There's another vote drop, and he is now ahead by 500 votes. I wish it showed where these vote drops are coming from. That would be pretty helpful. And again, I don't understand this color gradient on Civic API. I will talk to the owner about that, because me and him actually do talk a little bit. And so, it's a nice site, though. I do suggest you check it out. Got some new subscribers, everybody. Okay. Oh, my word. Okay. Just checking the inbox a bit, but, it's still a lot going on the socials. People are going pretty crazy right now. But yeah, Nashville is still only half in. There is a chance. There's a chance. It's slipping, but there is a chance. Um, Down by 700. So that jump. Oh, yeah, 700. 2 million on Kalshi. That's insane. I mean, they could have just given it to me instead, right? Like, and anyone could have just given it to me instead. But that's how online gambling goes nowadays. But yeah, look at that. Basically nothing. Wayne is now entirely in. Okay, so that's what happened there. Hickman, basically nothing left. Basically nothing left. So Houston, basically nothing left. So we're down to the point where we're going to be waiting on these 5, these 6 again. It's almost entirely down to these 6. And I mean, it's just, we're down about an hour in. And again, this was an R plus 21.5 district. And we are now looking at R plus 0.7. So I think that's a bit of a shift. NYT at plus 6. I'd say probably right now plus 5, plus 4. Just because of Nashville. I haven't done any math yet. I didn't set up a sheet. I didn't think about it. I probably might have should have, because it's only a few counties, right? And just a little bit of estimating. But it's 52% counted. So rest of the votes: Montgomery, Robertson, Davidson, Williamson, and a little bit in Cheatham and Dixon. And there's literally a scattering across Benton, Humphreys, Houston, Stewart, Hickman. Those are probably going to be about a net 500 for EPS total. Everyone's disappearing. But everyone's disappearing when we're getting to the good part, and I don't get it. I had like 30 people watching when he was ahead by like 50, and now it's down to single under a point and 15. But anyway, basically 1% for independents in there. All right, that's interesting. Yeah, the attention received at the end would have been good. For EPS, almost certainly. But bad good. Honestly, you might not be wrong about that. Partially bad good. Because you're bringing attention to a lot of things regarding the Trump presidency. I've seen both their ads, and I think Wayne just dropped down to 86. So either there was a precinct called recount, or there are more votes outstanding than they'd originally thought. So now when Epps wins by 200 votes, we know that they're. I'm kidding. Um, um, Elon's at it again. And so, I'm entirely kidding. And 50%. I'm just so yeah. You end up calling out, attacking Trump. I've seen both their ads. I think Bane's are slightly better. I mean, Epps was very good about, talking about how he would, fight for, the district. He wasn't necessarily talking about he wasn't doing anything about himself personally. He was talking about himself, but what he'd do. And then Bane was talking about what everyone else was doing. So it depends on how these strategies end up working out, right? And so I think she was focusing more on, how things would impact the consumer and things like that, right? Um and yeah, I mean it's going to be yeah, they were interesting. He took pride in the people called him a radical and then went and called Bane a radical leftist. I don't get how that was supposed to work. But it's you're in favorable territory. You got to do quite a few fumbles. It's like a game of chess, but you start with two queens and three bishops and three knights, and your opponent's down four pawns. You got to blunder a bit before you're really worrying about your game. Even with the environment and turnout dynamics, you still have to blunder it a bit. But then if your opponent is rated 2,000 and you're 1,500, right? Candidate quality, you gotta kind of make sure that you're not messing up and you can't blunder like that much because they're gonna make you hurt for it. Um, in a battlefield, if you're up a few thousand soldiers, but you're Jim Bob from Billieson, Georgia, and you're fighting against Napoleon, you gotta you can't be throwing random pushes in there. You gotta be calculated. So sometimes it seems a bit weird, but they are the ones with the upper hand originally, and so they can finick around a little bit. Um, down by six, down by six, still down by four here. Hydra Raiders are candid in the end. I don't know how much this stuff about hating the place had an impact. Considering that she's still ahead with 50% in, and this is likely early vote, in Davidson County, home of Nashville, by 70, I'd guess not so much. Um, just from might be circumstantial evidence, but it's very plain that it didn't really work too well as far as in Nashville goes, and that was what the target was to get lower turnout in Davidson County. That was the whole point. But it might have worked in Williamson. I think that's partially like where she's from, like a district right here. Let's actually find out. Afton, Bain District. 51st district of the No, not this. Afton, Bain. Copyright violations. Uh-oh. That's not good. Okay, 51st District, Tennessee. Look at that. People are already searching it. They want to know where she is, right? Incumbent Afton Bain. And so we have this. There we go. There we go. Okay. This district. Oh, that's like smack dab in the center of Nashville. Okay. There's Franklin, right? Here's the. Okay. Oh, my word. So, yeah, I mean, those independent candidates are probably just going for name recognition or something, right? Resumes. Yeah, that is a very normal district. That's part of that's some blue sink districts here. You're gonna get Central Nashville, shove it in there, get some over here, National Airport over here, and then you can smother out the suburbs. That's what the goal is here, probably. Um, but yeah, she's smack dab in the center of Nashville. And I mean, yeah, you're in the middle of a city, and if you're gonna hit a population in general, if you try to make it a swing district, then you're kind of gerrymandering for Democrats because you can only do so much to divert those votes. So it actually is fair to have some sinks, if you will. The question is how much you're actually like forcing into those districts. Montgomery just flipped. Okay, so I think now we're at the point where um it's gonna go. So Montgomery is now R+4. And this is what you'd be seeing for an even race. So while it was looking good for a bit, I do think that at this point, it's a bit safe to say that it's probably not happening. I think his odds just went up to about 90%. He's ahead by over 6. It's only 2/3 in. They only got that was okay. Hold up, that was only 17% of the vote. There's still more left. So I wish I had a precinct by precinct map because that'd be great. I could see which precincts it was because if it was on the outer ones, but like the inner regions actually still haven't reported yet, then she could absolutely still be in it, right? But I don't. And that could be the same thing for Williamson. Who knows if we actually have anything in there? So let me see if I can find TN07 special election precinct by precinct. If someone doesn't have this, I'll be very sad. Secretary of State office might. Yes, unofficial election results. Just open it, please. Thank you. Just open it up. So yeah, but she is from Central Nashville. For some, I just need a precinct map of TN04. Yeah. And it just, yeah, I bet this page completely crashed because people are actually, I'm not surprised because I bet they made this to only carry like a few hundred people, and now like probably like 50,000 people are viewing this at one time, and the servers are probably just crying. So you know, it's fine. I doubt that it's gonna have anything that really is gonna matter. Which Nashville account? Yeah, if Nashville had its numbers in, we would know a bit quicker. But you know, it's all right. It's fine. You gotta wait a little bit longer there, right? Because you don't know what precincts are coming in yet. So you gotta wait a little bit longer, maybe like 75%. Yeah, Davidson County is annoying me. The numbers are still potentially there. It completely comes down to Williamson and Montgomery now. That's it. Davidson can counter the rest of it. It comes down to Williamson and Montgomery. And so if we get to 75% in, and these guys are still where they are, then you know it's gonna be, you know, whatever. I don't care. But yeah, as a candidate quality, I'd probably say she was relatively up there. I don't think there were many that could have like Civic API called it for EPS. I'm not 100% sure on that yet. And you know, it's I mean, it's gonna come down to where these votes are from that are in Montgomery, and no one, they're not reporting precinct by precinct, so we can't really tell. I didn't think they would. I guess it's like certain that they wouldn't, right? You need to figure out, is Central Montgomery in or not? Is Central Williamson in or not, right? And if they're not, then right, it's just a big shrug. You gotta wait for those central parts to be in. If those are in, or if it's relatively equal, then it's over. But we're only at about a 90 to 95% chance of victory. Can't be 100. You gotta wait. You gotta wait, right? You gotta wait. You don't want to be too bullish on this sort of stuff. So it's gonna be a little bit chaotic. when you're when you have to, try to dissect and do some math here, but it's not looking phenomenal. She kind of is sitting right where she needs to, but it's not really panning out where it, you know, needs to be at yet. So, yeah, wait, just Williamson County a little bit more. She is down by 18. That's rough. And I don't think that it's looking pretty tough. So DDHQ projected as well just a few seconds ago. So it's starting to come down now. But it's still it's a little bit of a all right, what's going on? 64, 67 still. The general 8 points there. You're still gonna wait, for. I wonder where I wish I had a precinct map. That'd be great. You'd be able to get a lot more in depth with a lot of these, because I mean, some of these could have been a little bit premature. Honestly, I mean, if it's, I doubt it is, but if it's like just outer Montgomery, just like outer Williamson, and that's like outer Davidson, then. But yeah, 70 minutes after the polls closed, we're at over a 95% chance of victory. AP has not called it yet. We're still waiting a bit on so the 6.3%, I think that honestly is probably going to be a bit of an underestimate of how many actually ended up being, uh final number there, right? You're gonna, in order to have it be this close, that definitely has to be an underestimate. More Republicans must have voted for Bain than that kind of, I guess, let on, right? But it's still going to be very interesting to be able to see that it's going to be down to how much. This is still a huge win again because 21 and a half down to right now we're probably looking at about 3 points. I mean, with that's a pretty big blow, right? That's a pretty big blow there, right? 18 in Williamson. Montgomery is typically a bellwether county for this district, and currently by 4. So that'd be R+4 with 2/3 in. That's not that bad, right? That's not at all that bad. And that actually means that she's going to catch up a bit. 64% in from Davidson. All right, and so that's going to be. We have a projection to make now at 9:10 p.m. on the East Coast. After 1.25 hours of very interesting and relatively contested election, we can now project that Afton Bain has been defeated. Matt Van Epps has won the congressional race in Tennessee's 7th congressional district. We can make this projection based off of increased turnout, especially dropped margin in the Memphis region here, which is exactly where she needed to maximize out that vote, and it did just drop just enough. We can now project that Van Epps has won this district, which was to be expected, but again, very impressive performance so far that we've seen, and so we're going to continue looking at these margins here. So to answer your question, when will we know? 9:15. So it's a bit of a. It was a pretty good race, held on for a long time, but it was essentially impossible from the get go, and so it's gonna be it's gonna be tough to it's gonna be tough to take that, I guess, but it depends on how how close it ends up being again. You're still looking at the final margin. That's going to be the number one, you know, nominator here, right? But now being over 99% confident. But that was a pretty interesting special election. That was one of the that was one of the better, more interesting special elections that I've seen. It was pretty eventful, honestly. So now we're still waiting on a few more results. It's gonna be interesting to sure. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Um, Follow on social medias. Right, we got Threads, X, Substack, right articles. That's some good stuff. But Humphreys County still coming in for a little bit. Of course, I probably will start covering a bit more now. Availability is going to vary, but absolutely we'll be covering all the big stuff, including for Australia and Canada. So hopefully going to be able to get more on that. Have a fantastic night. And so, 6 points, not, I mean, worse things have happened, right? And so if you look, they don't, that's what annoys me about Jackson. They don't have off-cycle elections for the House. But you've seen some special elections here. I mean, we've seen a few very interesting ones for the House before. I mean, we have what is that? Okay. Oh well. I have no idea what that is, but there's a little triangle in the corner of my screen. Um, there is a state Senate district in Pennsylvania that flipped blue. There was a state Senate district in Iowa that flipped blue. Right? We have these things that are continuing, and this is just part of a continued trend. So the problem for Republicans is now how are they going to turn this around? They did phenomenal in 2024. Interestingly, they actually lost net seats in the House. They lost net 2, but they flipped 4 seats in the Senate, including McCormick by 15,000 votes. They won the presidency with the most electoral votes since 2012, right? So they're not and the first Republican to win the popular vote since 2004, but actually was the slimmest popular vote margin since 2000. So, take what you can get. But then again, as a Republican in this era, when you have California and Maryland and New York and Massachusetts and Illinois, and this time they didn't show up, and now they have Florida and Texas and the entire central part of the country, and they have Ohio now as well, which they didn't before. And Pennsylvania too, fifth largest state in the country. So it's only went up 120,000 votes. So it's 187,000. See that's the interesting thing about the 183, 187. So 187,000, 120,000, right? Actually won Arizona by more raw votes than Pennsylvania. That's just because of that large margin there. But anyway, what happened to? Oof, it was under 12 in 2016. Yikes! What happened in Delaware in 2016? That's my question. Because Harris won it by almost 15. But yeah, they did fantastic. The fact that they've been collapsing in 2025, which I don't know why they still don't have it on Jackson Jude, but oh well. The fact that they haven't been, you know, updating this or whatever, or is a bit annoying, but still, the fact that they're not building up where they should be is a considerable, sign that 2026 might not go so well. So based on this, what could we be seeing? So, nothing absurd, right? But instead we have here, um, you're gonna have, some. I'm just gonna fill out the competitive ones, right? Perez almost certain to hold on there, right? Almost certain in Oregon's district. Here now we're going to have the central part of the country. I'm not 100% sure about California. Probably going to be able to win there, though. That one's basically safe. That one's basically safe. This one could be contested, though, especially with, the unpopularity of Trump in Los Angeles now with the ICE raids and stuff. And it's just a fact of what's going on there. They don't like him too much right now. 6th district could be under fire. 5th district could be under fire, right? They're both retiring, I believe. You got potentially this district down here. These two could be under fire. I mean, this one could be in theory. This one could be depending on how bad things get for the Republicans with the Hispanic vote over the next little while. You could see this one end up staying blue, which would be pretty crazy. Um, you know, that one's going to be safe red now. That is now officially categorized as safe red for 2026. Um, you could see in Missouri. Why is it not? Okay, it's not set in stone yet, I guess. This one's going to probably be likely at this point. I mean, you could potentially see in Iowa things get pretty interesting as well. I mean that's probably going to be about as good as it's going to get. Um, you know, get some interesting results in uh across the state here in Wisconsin, Michigan, potentially wash out here. Detroit, those auto workers might not be too happy. I don't know. Haven't seen anything about specifically like working class polling versus anything else. Flip that district there. Potentially see hold on in potentially hold on here. Get a flip in some of this because I mean they're splitting Montgomery County. That's suburban. Potentially how well that goes. Potentially boot all three of these. Right, one of the most left trending districts in the area. Potentially Kean could end up going. Right. Lawler could potentially be at risk, right? I mean, honestly, he's pretty good though, so I mean, he might end up doing okay. Probably gonna end up being safe this time, right? So, I mean, Golden's gone, so that's not necessarily that competitive anymore. But these are probably gonna being, you too. Have a great night. Probably almost certainly gonna be safe here. I mean, potentially getting, likely in this one, right? Um, down in Virginia, potentially kicking these. That would be a show if they don't redistrict. So across the country, you could potentially. I mean, Montana probably not as much, but that'd be interesting to see. Um, get that there. And if you're 30-10 in competitive districts, then what are you gonna get? So it's not looking that great for the Republicans from this result, right? He pulled up ahead now again, 8%, 8 points. And that's still a very healthy lead. It's a very strong lead for Davidson County. I mean, what do we look at for 2024? What do we see for 2024 for county? Thank you. Davidson was 36. So now that we're looking at 65, right? That's doubling the margin. Double the margin in Davidson. That's phenomenal, even for a special election. That's still very good. Didn't necessarily come out across the rest of these districts though. I think Van Epps might break 70 in Dixon by the end of the night, right? Just a few more votes in there. Humphreys, Robertson, Montgomery is, that's a pain in the butt, but yeah, let's geez, coming down to and so it's gonna be a bit of a Dem shift plus 12 in Dixon County. This is basically all in. Only 12. That's a bit of a surprise, honestly. I mean, that's quite a bit of a rough. A bit of a rough thing there, but shifts from 2024 in these counties. We have Wayne at only 7. It's kind of interesting to see that the only 7 in Wayne. Perry, you're looking at 15. Houston, you're looking at 12. So these aren't actually enough, right? But then you get balanced out by Davidson being 30 points to the left of where it was, so that's actually pretty absurd. And so the and yeah, this actually says a lot about Ogles in 2026 too. Now that I go back to this, Ogles is right here. That's a much bluer district, right? Prepare for Ogles to be contested in 2026, right? That's going to be a very interesting race to watch and see there. So, that's gonna be a night. This is pretty brutal, honestly. And so, he only won by 17. That's 4 points less. If Bane wins by less than 4, I mean, you're not going to get the same turnout dynamics, but you're going to end up seeing this potentially be likely, right? You're going to see that be single digits, maybe even, right? Even though it's not even related, it's not going to be competitive. I mean, weird stuff's happened before. Look at 2016. Russell wins this district. Oklahoma's 5th by 20 points. And in 2018, the incumbency bonus is a thing. Incumbent Russell loses to Horn by 1.4. This was expected to be a safe red district on election night, and the Democrats flipped it. Now, that is like one of the few districts that actually happened in. The other one is Utah's 4th. McAdams flipping against the incumbent Love, who only won by 12.5 in 2016. So that's not, close to as strong there, right? Getting close to breaking in the 2nd, getting close to breaking in the 6th in Kentucky, right? Got close in Perry, got close with Fitzpatrick, got close with Kelly in 16th, which is actually wild because now her district is 27 points for her. But it's not impossible. It's not at all impossible. If you look at comparison between these two, look at that. In that district, plus 14. And he won by 17. That's down to 3. So you could end up seeing it go down to lean. Depends on who the candidate is. Again, we're speculating a lot here. It's going to all be based off of primaries, which I will not be covering House primaries because, oh my word. But it's going to be very interesting to, interesting to potentially get up there. So it's not looking good for Republicans 2026. Looks okay tonight. That's going to be padded a bit. Epps just hit 60% in Williamson. Yeah, if it wasn't over yet, then it's over now. He is winning Williamson County by over 20%. That's rough. That's pretty rough. I mean, she's 75% in, and she's holding 4 points in Montgomery. So she's doing okay in some areas, but 91% in Nashville now, and she's still down by 4. It's completely over. We called it 15 minutes ago. But it's Schulten was a good candidate. Axney was a good candidate. since those are equal, you can tell that Smith was whatever in 16. Ooh, excuse me. Uncontested in 2016. So it doesn't really count. It's not really the same thing. Shane actually did a bit better in Wyoming. It's weird. Um, Basically no change in North Carolina 1. But yeah, I don't see this being. That's interesting. Tennessee's fourth barely moved at all, but Tennessee seventh, 14 points, right? 31. But hold up. 8.14 plus 11.51. That just means that Miller was unopposed. Same thing in step. McGrath doing some work though in Andy Barr's district, 19 points. How much did he win by again? Let's look at that, 17.4. So it is possible in 2026, and this kind of makes it even more possible. It would be very, very interesting. This is probably one of the sleeper flips for Democrats. I know we said that for the 7th, right, which is now going to be safe red come 2026, but it would be very interesting to potentially see and safe reds as far as chances. I have no idea what the margin is going to be. It might be just below 12. Depends on how much Nashville turns out again, right? Fix those colors, make them pretty again. It really could just be down to some very interesting margins there. And this is the weirder part of Nashville over here. It's the, like, outer suburbs, so it's not really as probably not going to be competitive anywhere here. But yeah, Democrats are going to be pretty well set up for 2026, especially based off of this result. You had some very very strong contest here. But yeah, it did end up falling short, and that's not what I meant to do at all. But phenomenal performance, phenomenal performance. In a district like this, you should have expected even in a bad year like this, should have expected closer to maybe 8 points. Final prediction, final projection, final vote count. Gonna take a little while, but based on Montgomery, should be around 4.5 points. So not that bad at all for the Democrats here. And this is continuing their march towards 2026, which is looking more and more concerning for, the Republicans. But they're probably going to be able to. They got quite a few months to be able to shape things up here. So what we're looking at now is a safe Williamson and a lean Montgomery. This is the county map as of right now, and so it's a little. Probably taking a drink of water there, and it's over was a good race though, very good race. She was a very strong candidate. I think she definitely has some good aspirations. Because this was a special election, she didn't have to resign or anything, so she's still in the Tennessee State House. Going to be very interesting to watch where she goes. And so, it'd be interesting to see her like challenge in the Senate in 2026. I mean that could make that a bit interesting. It's Haggerty's term. But it's she got over 1 million votes. Look at that. And that's during a presidential year. It'd be interesting to potentially see outperform Trump by almost 4%. Interesting. Yeah, you can see that even in Montgomery, it wasn't very blue, right? So yeah, that's Knoxville. That's I don't remember where. That's a random town out in eastern Tennessee. That's Memphis. But yeah, it's gonna be. That could potentially make it a bit interesting. But the problem is then that would be a coinciding election, which means she probably couldn't run again, so she's probably not going to. But she definitely has some aspirations ahead of her. She did not do poorly whatsoever. I have no idea why AP did not call it yet. Um, oh my word. And now it's just it's okay. Yeah, people are just all right. Well, it is basically just completely been called across the. Dave Wasserman called. I have no idea who the heck this dude is. He got at redistrict though, so good for him. Um, Your Cook political report, and he called it 38 minutes ago. He called it at 9, so whatever. Still a very, very impressive performance, and I would not be. I would not. Oh my word, people are just people. Okay, well, decision desk called it at 9:06. Yeah, well, pretty much it's Rusty Pard. Let's look at some of these other races though. There's a few interesting things here. Um, Jersey City Mayor runoff James Solomon projected winner by a good bit. Hoboken Mayor, a little too close there. Hoboken City Council. It's probably like the top 3 or top 4. Got council wards. General Assembly District 31 and 32 have completely reported, and we have our final. I believe those are the final 2 for the General Assembly in Idaho Falls Mayor. I mean, the polls haven't even closed yet in Idaho. They're still awake. Georgia, 2 Democrats. Um, there's a few other races in Georgia. There's a Sandy Springs, Georgia mayoral election. Republican incumbent currently ahead by a good bit. Harris plus 23. But he's basically Phil Scott, so he's probably going to pull out a win there. And so people on they're like replace Senator Hashmi in the Virginia Senate for January 6th. There is a special election to replace current senator and soon to be. No, I did not ask for that. Thank you. Soon to be attorney, lieutenant governor of Virginia. So I think that's about it. I'm probably gonna just wrap this up. There's not really much else to look at here. I mean, and their AP has called the race at 9:37, 4 minutes ago. They Davidson County is all in, and that is a 25-point shift from last year. That's impressive. But yeah, 91% in. He is ahead by 6. So I'm saying it's probably going to be about a 7-point margin, 6.5. 76% in there, 98% in Montgomery, and that's an 8-point margin. So probably going to be about 6.5. Nothing phenomenal, but I mean nothing bad at all either. So oops. There we go. And so that is the end of the night. There are probably going to be a few Republican retirements coming in over the next few hours. But alas, that is going to be that's gonna be the end of the night here. Thank you so much for watching. I will be putting out the final results once they're all counted. So make sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on those. Also, we do America, Australia, and Canada. And so, again, thank you all so much for watching. And wherever you are, whether it's, whatever time of day is, have a great rest of your day, night, evening, whatever. And again, thank you for watching. See you all later.